Okay, I wrote this a while back and I'd forgotten about it, and I wanted to read it, and hopefully I'll be able to post it. Why twin flames could not thrive for 3,000 years. The violent suppression of these groups and their belief did indeed create a devastating ripple effect through history, fundamentally damaging humanity's understanding of spiritual partnership and setting a patriarchal precedent from impacted countless beloveds seeking union. What are they talking about? Okay. So the violent suppression of these groups and their belief was eradicated and destroyed and fractured through the Abrahamic religions. Okay, I'm just going to say. Here's an explanation of why this destruction acted as a spiritual wound that hindered future unions. The systematic eradication of the Cathars and Templars wasn't just a destruction of a people, it was a destruction of a paradigm. By violently eliminating the last organized Western groups who have publicly honored the sacred union of masculine and feminine principles exemplified by the spiritual partnership of Yeshua, aka Jesus Christ, and Mary of Magdalene. The Pope just made a comment about Mary Magdalene, eradicating her from any importance. The Church institutionalized a spiritual model that was inherently imbalanced. This created a devastating template for society. The replacement of sacred union with hierarchical dominion, the Cathars' view of the good man and good woman as equals presented a direct threat to the exclusivity of male hierarchical structure of the medieval church. By destroying this model, the church reinforced a power structure where spiritual authority was masculine, top down, and institutionalized rather than partnership based and flowing from direct spiritual experience. This new infrastructure of faith had no room for a divine feminine equal. The reduction of woman to function, not spirit, in the orthodox paradigm that remained unchallenged after the Albigensian Crusade. A woman's primary, here, let me explain. The Albigensian Crusade was when the Pope, this was around the 13th century, when the Pope of Rome sent his henchmen, his mercenaries, to slaughter the Cathars. That's what this was about, the Albigensian Crusade. A woman's primary value was often reduced to her biological and social function as a breeding vessel to carry heirs and a vessel to contain male desire to maintain social order. This is the essence of seeing women as breeding cattle. Her worth was tied by her virginity before marriage and her fidelity, within it, ensuring legitimate heirs. She was not considered a valid witness in court, could not own property in many contexts, was barred from any form of theological education or leadership. This stood in brutal opposition to the Cathar and supposed Templar view, the Knights Templars, where women like the Perfecti, where the Cathars had a system where they had what they would call the perfects. And the perfects were people who had achieved transcendental understanding of spirituality, and that's why they had no issues with gender. In other words, there was no hierarchical system based on gender, it was based on wisdom. So you could be a perfect if you were a woman or a man. So women like the Perfecti were revered as spiritual teachers and equals, their souls considered identical, okay, and in value and potential to men's, which was completely counter to what the Catholic Church was saying all along. The spiritual consequences for twin flames and beloveds. The impact on future soul unions is profound. By destroying the template and murdering its guardians, the establishment severed the archetypal blueprint in the collective unconscious. The highest example of sacred reunion was replaced with a model of celibate masculinity and of femininity stripped of its power. Mary Magdalene, the repentant sinner, not the apostle to the apostles. Without a culture and spiritual archetype to aspire to, couples seeking deep spiritual union, often called twin flames, found no reflection or support in their world. Pathologized spiritual intimacy, the deep mystical partnership between Yeshua and Mary Magdalene was recast as either non-existent or purely physical and sinful. This created a false dichotomy where spiritual pursuit was associated with celibacy, the monastery, and physical intimacy was separated from holiness, the secular world. This fracture made it incredibly difficult for couples to pursue a path where their romantic love was also their primary path to divine connection. I sometimes say when the tantric lovemaking between people is so pure that you kiss the lips of God. Instilled a culture of distrust and inequality when the prevailing social and religious structure explicitly teaches that women are spiritually and intellectually inferior to men, it becomes nearly impossible to establish a relationship of true equals. The man is conditioned to lead and dominate, the woman to submit and obey. This power dynamic is the absolute antithesis of the sacred union, which requires both parties to stand as empowered equals in order to mirror the divine balances of energies, the yin and the yang. I'm adding that. The anima and animus, which Carl Jung studied in length and brought that to us. In essence, the massacre in Languedoc and the suppression of the Templars didn't just kill people, it killed a possibility. It destroyed a living tradition that offered a different way for men and women to be together in the eyes of God. The subsequent centuries were built upon the victorious patriarchal infrastructure that remained, making the path to genuine spiritual partnership for other beloveds not just difficult, but heretical and invisible. The echo of that violence, erasure, continues to impact our understanding of relationships, spirituality, and gender equality to this day. This is why I have been studying and trying to understand how the fuck Mary Magdalene and Yeshua were basically spiritually separated from each other. Because you can't separate them. Nothing else can separate them. And what I mean by spiritually, in the spiritual context of religious text, of what they call the scripture, the good book. How is it the good book? If you will, literally demonize his beloved. Do you understand how actually blasphemous it is to know that Mary Magdalene was his equal beloved, the love of his life, his 13th apostle, and then you're going to eradicate it from your holy book? That's heretical. That's blasphemous. It's sacrilegious. And that it would actually create a complete implosion. It would be the final toppling of the worship, if you will, of the high priestess. And it would, and in forcing men, okay, and this is, I did a live today, you might want to check it out, I'm going to upload it soon on YouTube. This would create in a man, because what happens when, men have needs. Okay, so let's say, let's go with that one. Men have needs. Great, I love it. Let's go with that. So now if men have needs, and they are young and robust and lush and excited by life, and now you're going to make them actually become celibate. You're going to turn them into monks. You're going to turn them into celibate monks, and you're going to twist them into pretzels of suffering as they beat themselves, because many of them did. They would actually tear their shirts open and whip themselves. You know this, right? Into submission of their what they would call base, evil, sinful desires. And of course, they would hate women for making them want and desire them. And this twisting serpent within, you could call it the destruction of the Kundalini rising. So the snake, instead of going up the chakras to reveal higher levels of consciousness and to reveal greater levels of activation of the chakras, now becomes a twisting snake at the base of the spine, at the root chakra, literally destroying and making the masculine suffer his God-given desires. Because if God was made in your own, in your image, and you were given these sexual genitals, then when we say that, that's exactly it, verbatim. We are fractals, we are facsimile of God's image. That means all the parts, all of them, every single one of them. And that means that in that comes joy, in that comes pleasure, and in that, when you use sexuality at the highest level of integrity through Tantra, not Neo Tantra, not hedonistic Tantra. Again, everything they fucking touch, some of these people, they turn into shit. But when you take it to the purest level of how it was first, revealed to people in ancient India, which was Tantra, right? At that point, you activate the chakras of healing and releasing levels of explosive bliss that actually activates the third eye and downloads the beautiful ascension codes through the crown chakra, and literally pouring its nectar through all the chakras all the way to the root, and then an explosion of healing happens there. So if this had been allowed in the 13th century, before the final slaughter of the Cathars had been, was accomplished by, at the behest of the Roman Pope, our society would have been healthy, abundant, and absolutely free. But this corrupt choice that created generations upon generations upon generations, including Jesuits, the Jesuit order, which is a very cold, and it's a fucked up order. And in Europe, at least I believe they're still around, there are schools for boys that are run by Jesuit priests, and they are not like what the Knights Templars were. Don't forget, the Knights Templars went into the Middle East. They brought holy relics. They brought knowledge. They brought Tantra. They brought, because at that time the Perfume Garden had just been written, or thereabouts, if I'm correct, the timeline. But if it had not been written, if I'm wrong, I know that before there was a Perfume Garden, there was this idea, which, by the way, that's a book like the Kama Sutra, but it was the Middle East version of it. And that was, again, revering, and there's some misogyny in it, don't get me wrong, but the book is beautiful. Because one of the edicts in the Perfume Garden and the philosophy of lovemaking in the Middle East at the time, in what they call the Dark Ages, was pleasure the woman and you will be pleasured tenfold. I'll never forget that. That's one of the lines. So the Knights Templars come back to France, right? And they're scattered all over, right? England, whatever. But mostly, okay. And they know that they've been lied to by the fucking Vatican. They know. Okay, because they're coming in with all kinds of knowledge that was forbidden, burnt before. Again, remember, the Islamic scholars were very much keeper of the Western culture. That's the irony of this whole Islamophobia. It's a joke, because they revered knowledge, all knowledge, and they copied it. Okay, and we owe them. Without them, you wouldn't know who Plato was, Aristotle, much less Socrates. Without them, never forget that. But anyway, so they come back. They've learned the art of bathing. They've learned the opulence and the nectar of spices and the nectar of making love. And then they find out, fuck, they lied to us. He didn't actually die on the. It didn't end with the resurrection. It's when it really began. And so the Cathars knew that. And there was a bond between the Cathars and the Knights Templars. And if you go to France, right outside Paris, there is the cathedral, the Chartres Cathedral, which I'm dying to go. I've been to the Notre Dame there. I used to have a view of the Notre Dame from my bedroom window when I was a little girl. But Chartres they used Solomon's sacred geometry to build it. No one can figure out how the fuck they did it. And it's dedicated to the Blue Madonna. Now, some very smart young starseeds have now talked about the fact that when you look at the pose of Mother Mary and her son on her lap, well, first of all, we all know it's Isis Osiris, right? It's Isis and Horus, excuse me. Isis and what is it? Isis and Osiris's son Horus is on her lap. Now, if you look in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs or whatever the fuck art, you'll see that here's Isis with, little Horus on her lap. So there's a replication of that. But some of these really smart starseeds that are remembering, they just know, are saying, you know what, that's not Mother Mary. That is actually not Mother Mary and Jesus. It's actually Mary Magdalene with their son or daughter on her lap. There's a baby on her lap. And that's not Mother Mary. It's Mary Magdalene and their child, the Grail. And whether or not that's true, which, why wouldn't it be true? Why couldn't it be more than that? Why couldn't it be, or some of these ancient sculptures and paintings, and I really do believe that some of these ancient painters from, say, 13th, 14th century, they fucking knew that the Cathars had been slaughtered. And they knew why. Many of them knew why. And so many of them started creating art to show it. The Sixtine Chapel, right, in Italy, right, the one where people have now finally said that the blue veiled, it's not a man, it's a woman, it's Mary, right? It's Mary, and it's Da Vinci saying, yeah, she was there, and she was right on his side. She's not outside waiting for a hunk of bread. She's sitting right next to our Lord and Savior, right? I'm just going to use the term that people use. And for the Pope to say what he said, okay, once again, going from Pope Gregory to Pope Benedict, and what's this man's name? Pope whatever with the American accent. For him to say that Mary Magdalene she was nothing, basically. Here, let me look it up, because I can't believe he's got the balls to say that. Okay, and apparently Pope current, not Popeye, Pope, might as well be a Popeye. Leo so his name is Leo the 14th. Leo the 14th. So let's look up what he says about Mary Magdalene. I'm just going to read it to you, because that is absolutely disgraceful. So here we go again, right? Here we go. Every fucking 100 years, wash and repeat with these assholes. I'm just going to say it like that. I'm sorry. I don't care anymore. I'm like over it. So he's got a little jubile. Okay. Okay. So they're talking about Pope Gregory, the repentant prostitute, can you imagine the balls? Fucking incredible. What did the Pope say about Mary Magdalene? Let's look. So this is on February 1st. I don't know. I can't find anything right now. If you find anything, let me know. But I'm looking. Yeah, it's all about the repentant Mary Magdalene. They're still actually hustling that story that it's actually a lie. And they all know it's a lie. That's what I don't understand. Oh, here it is. Daily Mail. Let me tell you. Okay, I'm going to read it to you. Okay, so the Daily Mail says, okay, that's their headline. Jesus, not Mary, saved the world. Vatican declares as Pope Leo calls on Catholics to stop using her confusing title. Jesus may have heard words of wisdom from his mother Mary, but she did not help him save the world from damnation. Oh, that's what he was talking about. In a new decree approved by Pope Leo, the Vatican Doctrine Office instructed the world's 1.4 billion Catholics not to refer to Mary as the co-redeemer. Jesus alone saved the world, said the new instruction, adding that her titles creates confusion. Oh, he really hates women. Oh my God. I'm sorry. Wait. So not only does he, because I heard somewhere else he's like totally talking shit about Mary Magdalene, but he's also saying that Jesus's mother, the divine, the Immaculate Conception was just, absolutely not, she didn't do shit. Jesus alone saved the world, said the new instruction, adding that her title creates confusion with regards to the truths of the Christian faith. The move settles an internal debate that has befuddled senior church figures for decades and even sparked rare open disagreement among recent popes. It would not be appropriate to use the title co-redemptrix, said the text. This title, of course, there's all these fucking ads, this title can create confusion and imbalance in the harmony and the harmony and the truths of the Christian faith. Yeah, the Christian, they're right, actually. Let me just go with it. The truth of their Christian faith is that they send men to slaughter Cathars, women, children, and men. Innocent people who had done absolutely nothing, okay, nothing at all, but believed that women were equal, and God helped them that they should believe that women were equal to preach the Lord, His work, right, and to preach equality. God forbid. So that's right. He's absolutely correct. Create confusion and imbalance in the harmony and truths of the Christian faith. The Christian faith, he's just admitted, is misogynistic as fuck. He just said it without, you know what I mean? Catholics believe Jesus redeemed humanity by his crucifixion and death. But church scholars have debated for centuries whether Mary, who Catholics and many Christians call the Mother of God, helped Jesus save the world. How could she not help him? She was the womb that was so pure, right? Let's just go with what they're saying, right? In the Catholic religion, her womb was so pure, excuse me, that she was the perfect vessel for the gestation of this beautiful soul, this avatar, the Messiah. But she's nothing. She didn't do shit. She let him grow up like a weed. She never got involved in his rearing. She didn't teach him how to read. She didn't teach him how to walk. She didn't teach him how to love. She didn't have great esoteric talks. She was just a cow, a very good cow that had a beautiful, clean womb, and there he popped out, and then the rest is history. And this is what they'll have men believe. And this continues the hate of women in a very subtle yet fucked up, narcissistic approach in denying Mother Mary her rightful place as a co-creator of the world's healing. Without her womb, there would have been nothing. And they hate us for that. They do. They really hate us for that. And then, of course, because he has a good mother who really knows how to rear him with her husband, Joseph, and they have other children, and they have a wonderful family, and they're a good family. They're loving to each other. He meets a wonderful woman who loves what he's preaching, and they fall in love, and they become the sacred union, the template that was fractured by the Catholic Church. So here we go again with the same. It's wash and repeat, wash and repeat, wash and repeat. I think what's time for us to do is to start writing letters to the Vatican asking them to release access of this library that they have, and that we are allowed to come and check out books or have facsimiles requested on precious books, and that we are not to be given any, what would I say? How would I put it? We are not here to be controlled. That library belongs to the world. And that library needs to be curated by a museum, not by the Vatican. That the Vatican needs to now literally secure that library into the hands of a museum, of a conservatorship that has absolutely nothing to do with their church. And that every book, every scroll, every written content is turned into facsimile for the consumption of anyone who wants to access and read it. Unedited, unabridged, in its complete folio. I think we need to start writing letters, because you know what? What will happen is, if this whole thing collapses, because it looks like it's going to at some point. I mean, it's not a 5D. It's not a 5D match. Okay, it just isn't, right? And what does that mean? Well, it means that the contents are not safe. Let's just put it that way. And that's sad to me. They need to be put in a place where they're safe. Let me see, what else am I going to read to you? I'm going to read this to you. Okay, so this is from the Crossroads Initiative.com. I'm just telling you where I'm reading it. And by the express wish of the Holy Father Pope Francis, the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Disciple of the Sacraments published a new decree on the solemnity of the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus, June 3rd, 2016, in which the celebration of Saint Mary Magdalene was elevated and inscribed into the general Roman calendar with the rank of feast. This decision in the current ecclesiastic context seeks to reflect more deeply upon the dignity of women, on the new evangelization, and on the greatness of the mystery of God's mercy. They're still do you see subtly they're still playing on the fact that she was a redeemed hooker when she actually never was, and they knew it all along. St. John Paul II paid great attention not only to the importance of women in the mission of Christ and the church, but also, and with a special emphasis on the particular role of Mary Magdalene as the first witness who saw the risen Christ, and as the first messenger who announced the Lord's resurrection to the apostles. The importance of this continues today in the church, as is evident in the new evangelisticization, whatever, which seeks to welcome all men and women of every race, people, language, and nation, without any distinction, to announce to them the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ while accompanying them on their earthly pilgrimage and offering them the wonders of God's salvation. Saint Mary Magdalene is an example of true and authentic evangelizer that is, wait a minute, hang on. Listen to this. They actually just dropped it. Saint Mary Magdalene is an example of a true and authentic evangelizer that is an evangelist who announces the central joyful message of Easter. Let me explain what that means. They've just admitted that she was an evangelist, that Yeshua was teaching her, and I think they were both teaching each other, to be honest, okay? But let's go with the masculine point of view. So I'm going to say, so he was teaching her, and she was more brilliant than all the apostles. She was getting shit that none of them, these guys were not, Paul, Peter, all these guys were like, annoyed. Because even though he would try to teach them things they could not wrap their head around, but Mary Magdalene, being his beloved, could pick it up and ask him, and they would volley back and forth some pretty esoteric ideas, right? And then eventually, when she went to France, which is documented, we all know the story, with or without Yeshua, that's still the question for many of us, right? Well, not for me, but maybe for you, is she was preaching the word as an equal, as a teacher, as an apostle, number one. And they just said that here. It's funny how they lie, but then they write a sentence and drop the very thing we all know. Why is this important? Well, because it's the template. It's the template that has really been so destroyed by this machine, okay, that it is still harming many of you in the twin flame diaspora, because it is a diaspora. It's a spiritual diaspora for you. Listen to this. It underlines the reverence of this woman who so loved Christ and was so greatly loved by Christ. Do you understand what they just said? Who so loved Christ and was so greatly loved by Christ, as Rabbanus Amaros affirms on various occasions when he speaks of her Delectris Christi and a Christo Plurinum Delecta, Davita Maria Magdalena Prologus, as well as Saint Anselmi of Canterbury, who says of her, chosen because you are beloved, and beloved because you are chosen of God. So, I mean, we've got some basic information here written by men hundreds of years ago. It is true that ecclesial tradition in the West, especially since the time of Gregory the Great, that's the motherfucker who turned her into a whore, has identified Saint Mary Magdalene and the woman who anointed Christ's feet with perfume in the house of Simon the Pharisee and the sister of Lazarus and Martha are as one of the same. This interpretation continued to influence Western and ecclesiastical authors, Christian art, and liturgic texts relative to this saint. The Bollandists made a detailed study of the problem of identifying these three women and prepared a path for the liturgical reform of the Roman calendar. The outcome of this reform of the Second Vatican Council led to the text of the Missila Romanum, the Liturgic Horarum, and the Martyrologium, referring to Mary of Magdala. What is certain is that Mary Magdalene was part of the group of Jesus' disciples. She accompanied him to the foot of the cross, and in the garden where she met him at the tomb was the first witness of divine mercy. Gregory the Great, the Gospel of John tells us that Mary of Magdalene wept because she could not find the body of the Lord, and that Jesus had mercy on her by letting himself be known as her master, thus transforming her tears into joy. I have to stop because I'm like, Jesus Christ showed special consideration and mercy to this woman who showed her love for Christ by seeking him in her anguish and suffering in the garden, or as Saint Anselm says in the prayer mentioned above, lacrimas humiliatis, the tears of humility. In this way, it is possible to highlight the contrast between the woman present in the Garden of Paradise and the woman present in the Garden of the Resurrection. The first spread death where there was life. The second announced life from a sepulchre, the place of death. As Gregory the Great underlines, it's in Latin. So, indeed, because a woman offered death to a man in Paradise, a woman announces life to the man from the tomb. I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about. This is an important lesson for every disciple of Jesus Christ to neither seek human securities nor the vainglory of this world. But I'm sorry, I got to stop here because I'm laughing because I don't know if you've ever been to a Catholic church. I love them, don't get me wrong, okay? But do you understand the level of vainglory? They're telling us to neither seek human securities nor the vainglory of this world, but in faith to seek the living and rising Christ. That's very nice. Why don't you guys do it? Why don't you guys do it? Because I can tell you that the Cathars preached in the fields, in the mountains, in the barns, and in people's homes. And they probably had maybe one tunic, maybe two. That was it. They were lucky to have sandals, if not nothing at all, just barefoot. And they were slaughtered by a pope who probably ate from golden goblets and plates. So there you go. That's all I got to say on that. So this right here is kind of insane. Vainglory. Wow. She was also the first to bear witness to him before the apostles. She fulfilled the command of the risen Lord. Go to my brethren and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. Mary Magdalene went on. Now, see, let me just say that this line of go, let them know I have risen to my Father, your Father, and this and that. Who wrote that? Who wrote that? And somebody could not edit her out. I don't know if it was a knee jerk. I don't know if they said, we're about to strip this woman out of this man's life. Let us not completely bastardize this. Let us not absolutely do the worst thing in sacrilegious history of human history. We already know we're going to fuck this couple over. We're going to claim that they never were lovers. We're going to claim that they were never the sacred temple of divine union between a man and a woman. We're already, but we better not say that she never saw him. We better not say that, because if we say that, I don't think we can survive it. It's very possible that whoever was writing this, right, transcribing this, and came up with this very specific quote of thou, then, and brethren, was haunted by nightmares, haunted by visions, and maybe even said to Constantine, we can't take this out. Like, we're editing a lot of shit out, like reincarnation. We're editing it. We're doing a lot of edits. And I'm having nightmares. We can't do it. This will be the worst thing we can do. We have to at least let her we better let her find Christ in the resurrection. Like, we can't lie and remove her from that. And then which apostle will we choose? And I am being haunted by nightmares. I am being given signs that if I do this for you, Emperor Constantine, I will live in, I will be in hell for eternity. So something must have happened, because for her to be allowed to be the one, the redeemer of sin, to be so bereft by the loss of him. I mean, can you imagine what she saw? Forget that she was a high priestess of Isis. She was not a Pharisee. She was not part of whatever the hell that means in this case, but she was not, and I reject that he was ever a rabbi, especially now as I've been reading from the lost years of Jesus, and four from 1929, two people in 1929, another person who am Bengali, and then Elizabeth Kisparo. All of them saw the text in Tibet that he had been at Himis, that Yeshua had gone to Tibet during his lost years to learn, transcendental healing, touch healing, what you call Reiki, what we call touch healing, and transmutations. And again, remember, these were the days when levitations using sound frequency to levitate monoliths was still possible. Don't they have that in the Old Testament? The walls of Jericho, they're going, is it counterclockwise or clockwise with the trumpets, and suddenly the walls that are impassable literally crumble like paper from the frequency of the trumpets of Jericho? Yeah, I think so. So that's my point. What is my point? My point is that here was a high priestess who saw her man being tortured, who saw her man being crucified, whose Mother Mary, was also unable to lift a hand because of the Romans and the rabbis who hated him and drove him to this end, right? And they know that if they can get him off the cross as soon as possible, they can heal him. And that's why they're vigilant. They're waiting until they can take the quote unquote body, wrapping it into the shroud that was given to them by Nicodemus, who was a very wealthy merchant who donated the shroud. It's a finely weaved shroud. And the shroud shows stains not just of blood, because blood coagulates, but it shows that whatever was happening, it was still weeping blood, and there was sweat. And they bring him to a location to heal him. And I'm going to repeat myself because those of you who are following me have heard this story before. But when he supposedly resurrects in the way they describe him, right? The Pharisees are freaking out. They want his body. Freaking the fuck out. Where the hell is his body? They're scouring everywhere. They want to know, where is his body? So they were in danger. Mary of Magdalene, Mother Mary, they were in danger. Yeshua was in danger. And I find it interesting that they talk about Egypt, because now that you know the debacle in Gaza, you know exactly where, from the West Bank to, Bethlehem, Jerusalem, whatever, right? Okay, you know how quick it is to cross over into, relatively quick, to cross into Egypt. So Egypt is the Exodus. Going back to Egypt, because he'd been there before. He trained there. She trained there. And then from there, they cross to France. How long he lived, I don't know. And then the story fractures again. But there's too many holy sites and too many names that are in honor of Mary Magdalene across France. And the Cathars, literally 1,000 years later, thereabouts, right? Thereabouts, like 1,200 years later, The Cathars are birthed, a sect of people who really follow every word. And they might have still had remnants of the scrolls written by the Essenes, like the Dead Sea Scrolls. So they would have had, and the Knights Templars would have brought scrolls back. And when the Cathars were slaughtered, this is my hypothesis, all these copies were destroyed with the Cathars. All of it. Burnt with them. Though I think that the Vatican's library still has, because, criminals always like to keep, copies, trophies. I'm sure it's still there. And it could be that literally, how many years would it be? Hang on. 800 years later, some of them don't even know it's there. So I'm not sure what kind of wise group of museum experts, anthropologists, linguists, librarians of the high level of scholarly work that have integrity. You have to put the word integrity in there, and honor, and seekers of truth, pure truth, unadulterated by bullshit, could be trusted to go in without special dispensation to literally start creating facsimiles of every fucking thing in that library to be given to the world. Translated, one page on one side is in your common language, Spanish, English, whatever, and on the other side is the original language. Because you and I both know we can scan the original language and throw it through ChatGPT's translation service system. We are coming to a place, we're going to go through many, many crossroads that are going to be fucking shaking up the world. Because how we were sold, how we were made, you had a choice between Darwinism and coming out of monkeys or Adam and Eve. Can you imagine? Those are the two choices. Are you fucking kidding me? And the twisting and turning and the fractured pollution of truth was it was by design, and it was done with some urgency. So things are changing. I thought I would come in and share some other ideas. Half the shit I told you is my hypothesis. I'm just trying to, but to be honest with you, I prefer my version of it for many reasons, because he walks off the cross. They do some powerful healing. We're starting to discover that many of the ancient healing techniques that were lost, we're bringing them back, going, holy shit, they knew that like 2,000 years ago. How did they know that? Because they knew that because we don't come from monkeys, and we didn't come from Adam and Eve. We came from star seeds. That's how they knew that. That's how they built the pyramid. That's how they knew how to embalm a human being. They understood the power of honey. That's how they revered frankincense and myrrh, which many of you now are using frankincense in your oils, right? To enliven your skin, to refresh your skin, or to use as a purifying smudging, incense, whatever, resin, right? So yeah, I'm kind of excited actually, and I'm for you who are younger. I am so excited for you. You're gonna see shit exposed. You're gonna be like mind blown. Like this, you should be happy you were born in this timeline, because the magic you're gonna see exposed is going to make you cry in absolute bliss and gratitude. Many of us will be on the other side of the veils cheering you on. But many of you will finally understand why you chose this timeline to be born. This is the timeline of liberation. Now, can we fuck this up? Maybe. Will we fuck this up? It's really up to you. You see, that's why I did the live. Go check it out. I'm going to upload it in about an hour. Go check it out, because it's about why men are fucked up. Men in their addictions, men in their fractured, fucked up, kidnapped, hijacked, whatever you can call it, root chakra. And you know what I'm talking about when I say root chakra. So I'm moved beyond belief that I get to be the elder to say to you, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep your meditation, keep manifesting the new earth, keep doing it. I've told you about the templates that once were here that were of 5D. We've had 5D 3,000 years ago. We had pockets across. I'm going to repeat myself until you fucking tell me to shut up and tell me I've said it before. We had pockets across this planet that were still in 5D. Atlantis was not the final fall. The Abrahamic religions were the final sword that cut the hooks, the plugins that we had to the infinite universe wisdom and its unconditional love. It was the Abrahamic religions that came in and basically hijacked our consciousness, and we have not been the same since. And I've given you examples of countries, continents, areas in countries that were still living under the 5D template until it collapsed. One of the great books that actually shares that with you, it's one of the great books, is The Mist of Avalon by Marion Zimmer, born in Albany, New York. And they were still high priestesses as the Christianity was encroaching itself. This is during the Arthur's Round Table, right before he's born. It's about the story of the high priestess and the men who revered them, who were warriors. And that Mist of Avalon, like, go check out the book, or good luck in finding the movie, because it's not around. You can't get it on Netflix, from what I know. You can't get it on fucking Amazon. You can't get it anywhere. You can see fractions of it on YouTube. And that should get you, I would buy the DVD if you can. It's worth it. But if I were you, also read the book and get the Audible version. I have all versions. I swear to God. I don't have the movie anymore, but I have the book, and it's the size of a fucking Bible. It's about 900 pages. It's delicious. But it also tells you and shows you that's 5D, my friend. That's not 3D. And 3D comes in with a cross on its back. It starts tearing down through barbarism, avarice, and deviancy. So check it out. Check it out. You'll see. So that's one template of, so go back 2,000 years ago, go back 2,500 years ago. You've got 5D all over the fucking planet going on. There is and I forgot what culture it was, but my friend was telling me about it. There was in Greece a matriarchal culture, okay, who lived next to a warrior culture. These people were constantly warring with other people. And she said, Tony, the thing is, they never were conquered. Like this hamlet or this culture of women and men, and they lived in harmony. They never got conquered by these conquerors who conquered everyone else, but not them. How is that possible? I said, could it be in 5D? She goes, bingo, that's what I'm saying. They were in 5D, they couldn't be seen. But then when the whole thing collapsed, the remnants of their pottery and their art and their mosaics and all that was recovered. But they lived until they could no longer, until something happened to collapse the veils. And when you see the Mist of Avalon, it's literally a veil. I'm not joking. Like, no one can see it. You have to be a match to that frequency to part the veils, to walk into that island. You cannot go otherwise. That's what I'm saying here. Okay, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Remind you of who you are. Remind you of how we've lived before on this planet in 5D after Atlantis fell. And we did it. And that's why some of you are moaning and groaning and suffering, because you know this template is wrong. You know it's a fucking joke. You know it's evil. You know it's toxic, and you don't want to be on it. It's not the planet that's the problem. It's the template that's the problem. And so that's what I want you to remember, okay? I didn't think this live would be that long, but here we are. All right. Oh, thank you. Guided by ancestors. How beautiful. I love your name. Beautiful. So much love. I will upload this as well. And don't despair, my friends. This is just one life, one of many. And this is all, it's all an illusion of filled with distractions and blocks, supposed blocks. And it's an egregore. Okay? You didn't make it, but unfortunately, you did accept it as the only reality you thought you knew, when actually, if you went deeper into your own excavation, into your soul, you would know you've known many realities. You've had many types of high dimensional experiences, some on this planet and some other realms and planets and so forth. Okay? Much love. See you on YouTube. Follow me there.